Welcome back to the Dreamers to Doers podcast. This is our second season, and this is a podcast all about those moments where faith meets action. And guys, this episode, when I tell you this is about the moments where faith meets action, this is the episode that you want to listen to and have a shot of faith just inserted into you, because Carolina Flores is the speaker for this message. And she is just so many things around, especially around this podcast. And I'll tell you more about that. But really her heart that carries this faith, the gift of faith that is on her life is incredible. And so you'll hear that weaved in through this really powerful message all about igniting faith. And so the question that she poses that I really loved is that, is your faith on life support? And so if you're feeling that or connecting to that, I keep listening, because this is just going to encourage you and ignite the faith in your own life. Carolina is the co-founder and creator of Hi Hello Labs. Guys, guess what Hi Hello Labs is? It is the producer for this entire podcast. So I am so excited to get to introduce her, but also to just get to share with you what a gift that Hi Hello Labs has been to us. And I don't think I would have ever, well, maybe one day, but it would have been a very long time from now, actually stepped out and said yes to a podcast if it wasn't for, one, Carolina's voice in my life as a friend who just calls things out of people, but two, the fact that they made it so easy. Carlos and Carolina produce and package and make everything beautiful and simple, and they pump it out for us. And it's just like this one-stop boutique shop where you can record and receive your podcasts a few weeks later. And so I really love and admire them. They are good friends of ours. And so guys, lean in and listen in as your faith is going to get ignited as you listen to my dear friend, Carolina Flores, on this next episode.
Y'all, I am so excited, one, to be back in Texas. Hi, I'm from Florida, for those of you that did not know that, but I am so excited about this message because it's beautiful to dream, and it's beautiful to sit here and talk all the things that God is doing and wants to do, but if we don't get out there and do them, right, then what? So before we dive into this message, I actually want to clarify a few things surrounding this topic of faith, because I think it's important that if we are not clear about setting a right foundation, this is where we can run into the temptation or the trap of believing things in our hearts that God never said. And so we create this misunderstanding, especially when we begin to believe for and ask for big dreams. And so what is faith? And we've said it so many times, but in Hebrews 11:1, we learn that faith is the substance of things hoped for. It is the evidence of things not seen. And so, Carolina, does this mean that whatever I hope for, I can have faith for? Let's see what the word says. So the word says in 1 Corinthians 3:7-9, so neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but only God who makes things grow. The one who plants and the one who waters have one purpose, and they will each be rewarded according to their own labor. For we are co-workers in God's service. You are God's field, God's building. In Psalms 127:1, it says, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guard stands watch in vain. God is not looking to make a bargain with you. He is looking to have a partnership with you. And so as we think and go through this message, have that in your heart. Faith does not work when we abuse it and when we use it to twist the arm of God. And a lot of people end up disappointed by that because they want to hold God up to a bargain that God never agreed to. And so that in itself can be a whole sermon. So we are going to park that right there. But I wanted us to remember that God is sovereign, and that we should always take our desires and our dreams and the things that we want to accomplish on this earth to the Lord first, and to examine the motivation in our hearts of that dream and the why, the heart of that dream. Okay, so diving in. In James 2:26 it says, "For as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead." And I want to share the Message version of this verse because, as y'all know, I love my hospitality, and this one hits really close to home. It says, "The same with Rahab, the Jericho harlot. Wasn't her action in hiding God's spies and helping them escape, that seamless unity of believing and doing, what counted with God? The very moment you separate body and spirit, you end up with a corpse. Separate faith and works, and you get the same thing, a corpse." Y'all, don't sleep on the power of hospitality. So as I prepared for this message, I sensed these words, faith on life support. And I feel like right now there is a corporate thing happening in the church, corporately, that our faith is on life support right now. And life support is what replaces or supports a failing bodily function. It is something that, meaning when there is something that's not working in the body, you are put on life support, and this thing is what helps that thing work properly. And I want you to ask yourself today, is your faith on life support today? Have you bought into the lies, like Sarah talked about, that if you just think nice thoughts, everything will just work out? I just need to think it. I just need to manifest it, and everything will be fine, right? It's very prevalent right now in our culture. Are you just afraid that it's going to be too hard? Maybe, you know what, guys? The world, it's just in shambles. It's going down anyways. Why even do anything? Why even plan? Why even dream? The world is ending as we know it. So why does this even matter for me to dream with God about the future? And a lot of people believe that fear kills our faith. And yeah, I think fear makes us waste a lot of time. It's scary to step out in faith, but I think what's scarier is waking up 2 years from now in the exact same spot, with the exact same fears, with the exact same excuses of why you're not doing. I have this silly story. So I'm like deathly afraid of lizards, which is, guys, not working because I live in Florida, and there was literally a gator outside our house. Like, my neighbor had to call me, like, "Do not let the kids out. There's a neighbor on your sidewalk." Like, horrible. But I came home one day, and our house is like a bungalow style is what they call it. So like, we don't have a driveway. Our driveway's in the back with the garage. And I came home and I parked in the front because I just had to go in quick. I was on a time crunch and I had to go in quick to get something I had forgotten. And wouldn't you know it, there was this big lizard on my front door. And I was like, "You know, you're late, you have things to do, just get over it, open the door." I could not do it, y'all. I could not do it. And I literally like walked around like 3 houses to get, because my house is the house in the middle, it's not the house on the corner, so I had to like walk around the sidewalk 3 houses around the block to get to the back. Then I forgot the clicker for my garage. So wouldn't you know, I had to go back. Lizard's still there, freaking out. Like, I'm hyperventilating at this point. I mean, this whole thing that should have taken 2-3 minutes literally took like 15 minutes. Like, just time wasted over fear. Other things that kill faith: doubt, not knowing how it's going to play out. And I think Satan, this is like the oldest trick in the book, when he got Eve to doubt and say, "Did God really say?" And how many times when we hear something, when God deposits a dream in our hearts, we immediately think, wait, did God really say? Did God really call me to that? Am I really called to start this business? Am I really called to start this small group? Am I really called to step out in faith? Doubt. And really, what all those questions boil down to is God really for me?
Wow.
Because that's what we're really doubting. We're really doubting, does God love me enough to care for me? And yet, very clearly, we read in James that it is actually inaction that makes faith dead. And so being a doer of our Father's business, is what makes our faith come alive. And so you're like, okay, Karen, that's all good. What does doing faith look like? And I want to give you some very practical things. I've walked on faith for a lot of things in my life. Mainly all of them. And a lot of times, I'm like, my husband, I've shared this before, but my husband has this like thing where every time I'm like, babe, I've got news for you. And he's like, oh Lord, here we go. Let's sit down. What business are we starting today? What are we doing? What are we? He freaks out every time I say that. But that's just how I live my life. And so these are some of the things that I've learned and the Lord has taught me with time that I want to share with you. So number one, learn the word and yield it. And I will never forget at Refresh, Jeffy spoke. I think it was the first time Jeffy shared. And as y'all know, I have a son with special needs, and he has autism. And Jeffy's a couple years ahead of me in that road. And it was about the time where my son would have to begin schooling. So he was 5 years old. He was going to begin school, and like, I don't know what to do. Do I homeschool? Do I send him to public school, private school? We can't really afford private school. Like all these things, that are going through my head. And we go to retreat that year. And Jeffy shares this. She just looks at me dead in the eye and she says, Isaiah 54:13. All your children will be taught by the Lord, and great will be their peace. And y'all, as I'm standing here today, that day, that moment, I made a conscious decision that I will stop being afraid. And do I worry from time to time? Absolutely. I freak out all the time. I'm still human. But do I have the ability to cut the head off of every worrying, lying thought that comes from where? You can take that to the bank. I am not sitting in worry. I'm not spending time fretting. I'm not spending time worrying about it. And I literally told my husband, we're done. I don't want to hear the conversation about how we're going to pay for anything. I don't want to talk about this. We are absolutely done. And I want to share something with you that happened. So the school that he's in today, it's a Christian private school, and they have a special needs school within that school. He actually went there for preschool, and that's where they actually told us, hey, we think he needs to be evaluated. He was 2 years old at the time. I was a little off. But it was like my dream school. It sounded a little bit like Legacy, like it goes from K to 12, and like they have their vision of the school is like amazing, and like, they love the Lord, they're spirit filled, and they teach special needs, which was like, wow, amazing. But the school costs $40,000 a year for my son to be there. That's just tuition. And I understand, like there's so much cost involved. They include all the therapies, like there's a lot that goes into it. But I'm like, that's like college tuition. Like I wasn't ready for that at age 5, Well, I didn't remember that I had applied for a scholarship with the state of Florida when he first got diagnosed. In my like frantic, like my doctor's like, do all these things. And I'm like, I'm doing all the things. I'm applying everywhere. Like I'm trying to get help. What are we doing? I applied for that. That had been put in the back burner because the first year that we applied, like, sorry, you're going to be waitlisted. This takes years to get approved. Like, all this stuff. Like, it's just there. We'll let you know. We'll call you, my people will call your people. And I'm like, well, don't have any people, but kind of need my people now. But anyways, the Lord provided, and COVID hits, and public school is no longer an option for my son. I've determined that, like, you know, mass, like he just can't handle all the things happening in public school. And I'm like, God, when I saw this school and my child went there when he was 2 years old, like, I know this is where my son is supposed to be. So I'm showing up, God. I'm doing all the things. I'm believing. I'm having faith. I know you spoke this, but here it is again, Lord. And I'm just going to surrender it and give it to you. Well, long story short, I literally get an email saying, you've been approved for a scholarship. And I'm like, huh? What? Okay, let me see how much it is. And usually, and I'm on like mommy groups, and usually, like, you know, people get $10,000, like that's where it's capped. $12,000 is the most I've heard of. Y'all, there was $32,000 in that account. They had made a mistake.
Yeah.
I had been approved from year one. So for 3 years, this account was just building. The funds roll over. So for 3 years, these funds had been just accumulating in there. I mean, God came through, y'all. And my son is in school, and then the school gave us another scholarship. The school's paid for. We've paid $0 for my son's $40,000 a year school. And I know it sounds vain, and this is where I wanted to put that disclaimer in the front, because this isn't a name it and claim it thing. Okay, this is a partnership with the Lord that He is inviting us to be a part, and He is being a gentleman, and He's providing all the things. But I took the step. Okay, I checked out what the school was. I checked out how much the school cost. I was actively in faith pursuing what God was saying. And I was standing on the word, and I yielded when I needed it. God, you will teach my children, and great will be their peace. And here's the other thing that I wanted to say about that. Saying no to worry made space to say yes to everything else that God had for my life. Me being a special needs mom was not my identity. I refused that to be my identity. I refused that to be, my life. Does it consume a lot of my life? Absolutely, but that is not my identity. And so saying no to worry gives you a yes to other things. Number 2, renewing your mind. Romans 2:12, it says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. You have to renew. It's a constant reminding yourself that God is who He says He is. Yeah. And, there are days where you're going to wake up and it's not going to feel like God is who He says He is, but you have to renew your mind every single day and be in the Word every single day. And I know it's hard, and find what that looks like for you. Give yourself grace. Listen, not everybody has the time to sit and open their cup of coffee and get their journal and now we're going to have this super Instagrammable moment of reading our word. That's not the reality for most people. But what are you consuming that is going to allow your mind to be renewed? Number 3, turn your dreams into a plan by writing it down. I cannot emphasize this enough. I'm going to butcher it, Habakkuk 2 and 3, it says, then the Lord replied, write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. You know what I love about this when I read this, and it will not prove false? Receipts. I have receipts when doubt comes of what God spoke in my life. I've made a commitment to the Lord. I've committed to my partnership with the Lord when I am brave enough to write it down and say, I know this is going to come to pass. And when it comes to pass, hey, I wrote that down 3 years ago, 5 months, 6 days ago. And the Lord brought it through. My husband and I have this thing called the God box. And if we have a podcast, if you listen to it, there's a whole episode on it. But it's a silly thing. And we literally write down our prayers and our dreams. And then we go back and we'll read through and write down when God answered them. And we're just filling up this box of faith-filled prayers that one day our children will inherit, and they will see all these prayers that mommy and daddy prayed for. But write it down. And then the fourth thing, obedience. Following the still small voice, not just hearing it or even listening to it, but actually doing the thing you heard. And if you're like, Carolina, well, I don't know what God's saying. I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. I don't know what I heard the Lord. What was the last thing he told you that you still haven't done? Yeah. He can't release more if you still don't do that one thing. What is that one thing that you are stuck on? And you need to take that to the Lord and reconcile with that. Obedience is a reward of faith itself. And I think we underestimate the peace that comes with obedience, and knowing that we're walking in obedience, like that just doesn't compare. Angela Davis, she's this incredible businesswoman. She actually was the founder of SoulCycle. It was like before Peloton was Peloton or SoulCycle. And, but she's also a believer. She's an incredible woman. And she once said, you are worthy of the version of you on the other side of hard work. And that changed me. Like, stepping out in faith always bears fruit every single time. And it may not be in the ways that you expect. It may not be in the ways that you thought you were going to be rewarded, but you always bear fruit with obedience. And then here's the thing. It may not even be about you. Like what God is calling you to do, and especially like the moms in the room, like God's entrusted you with these children to raise and be godly warriors. And like, it may not even be about you. It's going to be about what they're going to grow up to be. And you may never see the fruit of that, but it's about legacy. And we've talked about legacy and like the importance of legacy. Your dream doesn't have to be about building a big old ministry. It doesn't have to be about standing on a platform and sharing your story. It could be. But maybe God's calling you to start a small group with your neighbors. Maybe God's challenging your own faith to evangelize people at the grocery store. Like, a dream does not have to be what the world defines as a dream. Yeah. The work in the kingdom is whatever God defines your work to be. And we're all here on assignment, each and every one of us. Your dreams don't start when you become a mom or when you do this. Your dreams start when you're breathing. While your heart is beating, you are on assignment. And so we have to get out of our own way. You're never going to walk from obedience empty-handed, ever. Absolutely never. For the last year, I've had a very specific prayer in regards to my business. And I said, Lord, I want divine strategy. I'm done. I'm done following the algorithms. If y'all have a small business and y'all are on Instagram, like, I'm done with the algorithms. Instagram, I'm done. Like, we're not doing the reels. I'm not dancing on TikTok. Like, it's just not going to happen, guys. You don't want to see me dance on TikTok. So I've been asking y'all, like, give me divine strategy. Like, if this is you, I'm actually going to stop trying to figure out, and you give me divine strategy, and I'm going to move when you tell me to move. So good. And several things have happened, and it's been amazing. But one thing that I want to, speaking of getting out of our own way, this photographer friend, she's super talented. She's so talented. She reached out and she's like, hey, I want to kind of change my portfolio and go into more of branding and like shoots and all that stuff. I want to shoot you for your business. And I'm like, okay, listen, I've gained like 18 pounds and I don't really like the way I look right now. So maybe not me. And she's like, I just really sense like God was wanting me to use you. And I was like, okay, all right, Lord, this is you. We're doing it. We're doing the thing. Well, I said yes. Despite how I was feeling, I said yes. And this is kind of like the story of, when people are like asking the guy that gets stranded in the ocean, he's asked for help, and like the fisherman comes and they're like, no, I'm waiting for help from the Lord. And God's like, I'm sending you the fisherman. So this girl comes, she takes all these pictures, and I literally had one of my best friend, Ivana, she's like standing behind the camera, and she's like, chin up. And she's like, yes, girl, work it. She's like, hello, yes, like pumping me up the entire time. And I'm like, oh gosh, that took so much energy. But 2 weeks later, I get an inbox full of all these beautiful pictures for my business. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start uploading them. And y'all, in a month, I cannot tell you the amount of leads and businesses that have come my way, opportunity that has come my way for my business in 1 month from this shoot. And I know it's a shoot. And I had a big client come over, a big account, dream client type thing. And she goes, I saw your Instagram and I was so impressed. And I was like, but this is the thing. God had been conditioning me. Come on. If that client had been on my Instagram 6 months ago, she would have not been impressed. And so I got out of my way, and God used that. And I stepped out in faith, and I did not walk empty-handed. And here's the truth, and we're getting close to end here, and I thank you for sticking with me, but the truth is there's a big, big human part of me that wanted to say no to this. A big part. I love Sarah. I absolutely love Refresh. And every time I see anything Refresh, she texts me something about Refresh. I'm like, yes, let's do it. But I did not want to stand here. I've been sick for a couple months of just dealing with hormone imbalances and things. I'm literally 18 pounds heavier than this camera saw me last year. And it's hard, y'all. It's hard to deal with some of this stuff. Obviously, we have to have our emotional moment. But I have felt most insecure these past months than I have my entire life. And this false sense of shame that comes in a fitting room because you're buying a size up. You never thought you'd have to buy it. It sounds so vain. There's people with real problems. Why is this an issue? But it is. We're human. And I want to validate that because I think we're so quick, especially in the church, to be like, that's not important. Like, there's people dying. And there are people dying. And it is. But like Jeffy said, we can't compare our pains. We can't compare the struggles. We can't compare. And this is where I'm at. But here's what I know. I know what it feels like to feel like you need more to get started. Yeah. And like, if only I had a few extra pounds, if only I had an X amount of money in my account, if only I had a husband to help me with this, if only I had children, if only, and I'm here to tell you that there's always going to be an if only. Right. There's always going to be an excuse of why not to start, of why not to go. And I felt God as I was wrestling with God and going, I want to say yes, but my flesh wants to say no. And in his ever-loving mercy and grace, I felt God said to me, I can find somebody else. Somebody else can go up there and preach about faith. That is not the problem. But I am inviting you to be a part of a moment. This is not about my jean size. This is not about my jawline. I was sent here on assignment, and I know that. Yeah. And I'm here because there is someone else listening to this message that needs to know that they too can do it afraid. Yeah. That we have to do it afraid. We have to do it messy. Yes. You don't have to wait to look a certain way or to be or to have certain skill to start what God is asking you to start. So good. I could have said no, but I would have missed out on the opportunity of walking out my freedom. Yes, that's good. I'm whole the way I am. Yes. And I look good. Yes. Okay? I look good. And we look up to these amazing women of faith in the Bible, women who were even in the lineage of Christ, Rahab herself. All these women And I have yet to find one single reference in the Bible about their weight. Right. Or about how they looked. Right. Hannah's got faith. Ruth has faithfulness. Rahab's courage. Deborah's strength. I haven't read about Mary's postpartum body. I haven't read about Esther's cellulite. Y'all know she must have had some. Sarah's wrinkles. Right. None of that is in the Bible because none of that is what is going to leave an eternal impact. And so I want to end with this. Beautiful. I had this picture God showed me when I was preparing about bodies covered in wax. And wax doesn't melt in cold environments. In fact, it actually hardens. And maybe for some of us, the familiar feels safe. Perhaps right now being covered in wax is good for you. Like you're like, this is good. I don't have to do anything. And that's where you want to be. And that's fine. Then this is not for you. But for those of us who we are burning inside with something God has called us to do. We are burning with a relentless hope. We are seeing things that have not been yet seen. And we have a hope inside of hearts. In our hearts. This message is for you. Run to partner with God. Run to partner in obedience. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And there's more of us that need to be in the doing. Amen. Pray. Lord, we just thank you so much, Father. We thank you that you have equipped us, that you have called us, that you have made us able. God, and that if you have deposited the dream in our hearts, God, if you have invited us, if you have seen us and heard us and have said yes to us, then Lord, give us the courage to say yes to you. And then move from that yes and begin to take action, God, and go from dreamers to doers. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.